Hey, Dory, thank you so much for accepting to come and do this interview about advocating as a woman for other people. And I just thought you were the perfect example for this. Now, maybe for the audience, could you explain a little bit about what you do and what your title is and what is it that you do as
Sure,
a lawyer?
sure. I'm a staff attorney for a nonprofit direct legal services organization in Berkeley, California. Essentially, we do a lot of work with low income and homeless people in our community. Many of them are, well, they're all pursuing disability benefits. They're, unable to work because of physical or mental health disabilities. And one of our primary roles is to help them apply for and advocate to get them access to these disability benefits so that they have an income. Since many of them are unsheltered, we also do quite a bit of advocacy around housing, trying to help them find housing, get into housing, and a lot of other side issues that come up because the population that we serve faces a lot of big problems. And so we try to give a lot of wraparound services to address those needs.
That's a super important role, and especially in a state like California, where it's such a huge problem, um, such a difficult, right, for so many people to get out of these situations. And tell me a little bit about your, trajectory. How did you, where did you study, and how did you decide to work for in that area?
Sure. I think I always knew as a young person that I wanted a job that was going to be meaningful, that I enjoyed, going to work every day, that I felt had some, greater purpose for me, and helping others was a big part of that. So, beginning in undergraduate, I did a lot of internships over the summer to try on different fields of what felt right, and legal services for nonprofit work, public interest law was something that I immediately gravitated toward. And that was a big part of why I then decided to go to law school. And when I was in law school, I specialized just in this kind of work. So I kind of knew from an early on that it's what I wanted to do.
That's amazing to have that clarity since the beginning. Um, and what's your favorite part about your job?
Oh, working with the clients. That's an easy one. They're just incredible, amazing, resilient people who have had to survive and endure, really difficult life, changes and circumstances, and to be able to do that and still come through it. Um, you know, they're just impressive people, and it's a real privilege to be able to work with them and to have, even a small impact on their lives. So.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of role you can actually see directly the impact happening when you're successful in advocating for them. So I think
Mhm.
that's really amazing. And what's the hardest part? Like, what are some of the challenging parts that maybe you didn't expect when you got into it? Maybe they were different from your your ideal or what you imagined would be in terms of
Right.
achieving what your work and getting them the housing and everything that
Mhm.
you really want to get for them.
I think a lot of it, bureaucracy is a big part of it. Just like the systems that are in place to make progress slow or to prevent success, and having to work within these, larger infrastructures to, kind of gradually get at the goal that you're trying to reach can be very frustrating. The wait times, for example, are just horrendous. And imagine being disabled, being unable to work, and having to wait anywhere between 2 and sometimes 6 years to be able to get, these benefits. How are you supposed to support yourself in the meantime? Meet your own needs. So I think it feels like a very inhumane system, and the length of time can be, frustrating to try to like guide a client through that, to keep them engaged, without feeling defeated is a big challenge. Also, something that's a huge issue for people who work in direct services like I do, is burnout. It's, burnout and vicarious trauma, because you see so much suffering. You hear of so much suffering, and it's very easy for that to impact your own um, your own mental health in a very direct way. So one of the ways that it showed up for me, for example, was feeling just a lot of pressure, like I'm the only one who can fix this problem, and if I don't find a way to do it, no one will. And putting all of that responsibility and pressure on myself became a very, very harmful in a lot of ways. So then, because the problems my clients face are so big, compared to, to the ones that I face in my life, what's a few extra hours on the weekend or in the evening, to help fix that problem? The constant pressure to try to do more, to try to help more, and then blurring boundaries between your work life and your time at home can be very problematic. So I found that it's important to focus on self-care and to set appropriate boundaries, because if you burn out, you can't help anybody else. So you can't do your job effectively if you're not in a good place.
Wow, yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's a huge one. You put so much of that responsibility on your shoulders, and but how do you get to that shift where you're able to create that a healthy boundary that you need in order to serve well, right? Because you have family, you have yourself, you need to be well in order to also help at work. So how did you mentally shift that and not feel guilty about taking care of yourself?
Mm-hmm. I think, first of all, you have to celebrate the wins when you get them. It's whenever you have a victory, you have to celebrate it, because the tendency is to feel defeated by the magnitude of the problem. Like the problems are so large, and the small things that I'm doing are never going to, solve the bigger issues. You can just focus on the individual tasks of like, what do I need to do to address this today, to be discreet about it, and to, when you have a success, to celebrate it. You do as much as you can within the hours of 9 to 5 or whatever your workday is, and then you have to mentally shift and set it aside, and then go about the rest of your day and the rest of your life so that you can come back to it fresh the next day. It's been a little harder in the pandemic because we're all working from home, and so the line between work time and non-work time can be a little bit more fuzzy. But when I was commuting to my job, I picked a point in my commute where, okay, I can think about work and what happened at work today up until this part of my drive. And then at that point, I have to switch over and start thinking about, what am I going to do with the rest of my day? How am I going to interact with my kids or my partner? What do I want to do this evening, and what kind of a person what kind of a life and home life do I want to have tonight? To start shifting gears.
I love that, actually, that tip, because you trained yourself to be able to quickly just move your mind from one thing to another, so that you could be, you could do your best in your new environment. So you had a timeline, and you, from that point, you shifted and said, okay, from this point onwards, now it's family, it's me, it's home. How can I do my best here? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can see how that is difficult to implement, but I guess with enough attempts, it gets easier.
Well, we're always a work in progress, aren't we?
We are.
And it's always
absolutely
hard to leave stuff, leave the work at work.
It is, yeah, and especially work that leaves an emotional element, right? It's so profound. And how did you feel that? Because you said that there's a lot of bureaucracy, and it's difficult sometimes to manage all of that. And it's difficult sometimes to even secure a win when you're advocating, and obviously you're dealing with a lot of people to try to achieve, get all these resources for these people that you serve. So how do you feel that people would generally respond? So people that you work with on a regular basis, but also people that maybe you don't work with on a regular basis, but you ask for something, or maybe you're pushing a little bit stronger than maybe others, really want to get something done by a certain time, or how do people generally respond to that?
I think in general, people are trying to do their jobs, right? So whatever your job function is in the bureaucracy in which you're working in, they hold a small piece of a much larger, policy or structure. So while they individually may be sympathetic, they may not actually have all that much power or discretion to be able to help in the way that you want them to be able to help. So much of the work that I do, whether it's advocating with social services agencies or with government agencies or with care providers that serve my client, it's usually collaborative. I'm trying to utilize whatever strategy I can to help get the positive result that I want for my individual client, whether that is needing to be a little assertive and pushy for something that they need or that they are entitled to, while maintaining professional responsibility to others, being polite, because I found that you often can't, you don't get what you want by being overly difficult most of the time. So when you're being an advocate, you have to kind of find your own style of advocating and find out what strategies work for you and how you work with others to achieve the result that you're trying for.
Yeah, and I think that's have you seen any difference in how people respond to, let's say, when you and other women are advocating for things versus when maybe a male colleague is advocating? Have you noticed any difference in treatment or in I don't know, the approach?
Not directly, but I mean, there have been circumstances where people say, well, I don't want to talk to you, I want to talk to the male lawyer. Or mostly it's assumptions that I'm a social worker and not an attorney. Or, oh, you're the attorney on this case. It's questioning your right to be there or your credibility as the advocate who's supposed to be there. That's what we typically see.
Yeah, because as a lawyer, you have you have that element that supports your goal or if advocating. It gives you a little bit more of how do you say, people will respect you more because of it. And if they aren't, then what do you suggest? What can other women do? So let's say if they're being treated as, like you said, like as a social worker and not a lawyer, when they are in fact a lawyer, what can they do, and what do you do to get that respect that you deserve, so that you can do your job the best that you can?
I correct them, but I try to do it in a non-judgmental way, without trying to make them feel, hostility or blame, because it's like, well, I'm the attorney, and then I just try to stay all business and move on to the business at hand.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very powerful, just not reacting to what they say, but like you said, making it very clear where you stand.
Sure. And in circumstances where I've had walk-in clients, we do a lot with the public and public clinics, and I've had walk-in clients who said, I don't want to talk to you, I want to talk to the male attorney, who it undermines your skill and your credibility, right? And you don't have to take that and say, well, I'm the attorney that's available to talk to you. You can talk to me, or you don't have to receive services here.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's unfortunate that that's still the case, but I think we need to do the best that we can in dealing with these situations. I think what you do is perfect. And in being advocating for someone else, right? I think it's definitely something that women tend to do quite well in general. in terms of advocating skills and versus advocating for self. What do you think that women tend to do well when they advocate for others? What is it that women have a natural skill that maybe even better than a lot of the guys out there when they're advocating for someone or for a cause, something bigger than themselves?
Well, I think the skill that I rely on most when I'm trying to be an effective advocate is at the cornerstone of every good advocacy relationship is the relationship with your client, where you have to have a solid foundation with your client that's based on trust and mutual respect. So for me, that means I can't fight for something or I can't fight for someone unless I know what I'm fighting for. So you need to listen carefully to your client and make sure that you really hear and understand what their goals are, what their values are, and what they're seeking to get out of something. Otherwise, you're advocating for the wrong things. So, while it's always important to have, at the root of it, the prerequisite is your competence and knowledge in the area that you're advocating for. That's a given. On top of that, you need to have good communication skills, and a solid relationship with your client. So for me, things that I do, to build that trust is just trying to be a good listener, to be empathetic, to show in my demeanor that I care and that I'm here to listen to them, because so many of them feel marginalized in these systems that they don't often feel heard. So even small things like making eye contact, reflecting back what someone has said to you so that they know that you heard it, those are easy things that you can do to try to build that relationship between yourself and your client.
Do you find it generally very that with some clients it's challenging to earn that trust because they've had such a difficult time dealing with other people?
Absolutely. And it's not a given. That's why you have to earn it, and you have to show them that you're not just another suit who's just pushing a pile of papers from one side of their desk to another, that you're going to treat them like a person with some humanity, treat them with dignity and respect, and remember that I work for them. They are the ones in the driver's seat. I'm a service provider, so part of my role is to not just advise them what their rights are, but to listen to them and to fight and to solve problems that are based on what their individual goals are.
And how do you go about the problem-solving part of your job? So on the two ends, you have the people part, right? The relationship part, where you have the judges here and the service providers that you need to maintain a relationship with, and your clients, which are both challenging. You have challenges on both ends, and then the problem solving itself. So how does the problem solving work for you?
Well, most of the problem solving that comes up is like removing barriers for my clients. So if there's a problem like I don't have access to income. All right, well, what things can we help you apply for? Just individual, like I have this problem. Okay, well, what steps can we take to address that problem? Those are the types of problem solving issues that usually come up for me, and to try to break things down into digestible tasks that you can tackle one at a time, rather than feeling overwhelmed by there's so much that needs to happen. There's so many big problems that need to be fixed.
Yeah, because you said some of these are quite, I mean, it's a person's life that needs to get turned around. And how long does it take on average to go through the entire process for one client?
That can vary. So usually, the fastest turnaround we often will see maybe 6 to 8 months. But I have many clients that I've been representing for 5 years or more. So it can be a long investment of time, and very demoralizing for them to have to wait so long.
So basically, this is very long term. You're advocating for something that's very long term.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be dealing with these people, so that makes it even more important to have that collaboration that you talked about.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that's a difficult job. It's so important.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you would recommend for people out there who are, especially professional women, who are looking to advocate on behalf of someone, be it their team, their clients, or anybody else?
I would say, you have to work at finding, the style of advocacy that feels genuine and effective for you. Because there's so many different ways to be a good advocate. And one style that works for one person, you may not work for someone else. I find that I am not the most aggressive advocate. Not aggressive in terms of assertiveness, but aggressive in other ways, like your traditional courtroom combative, attorney. That doesn't feel authentic to me. So my strategies often tend to be more collaborative, more based on problem solving, and just being working with other people, trying to find a mutually beneficial outcome, as opposed to just being very aggressive in my style. And that works for me, but that may not work for everyone. So spend some time thinking about, what feels right for you and try on different strategies. And that's the best that you can do.
Yeah, that's great advice as well, because it is very important to look at our own personality and who we are. But like you said, when there's a situation where someone um, disrespects your role, you'll make sure that they understand what your role is, but you'll still be very collaborative and cooperate and listen, and do all those things that are going to help build your case and get the results for your clients. So I think that's a great advice. But as you said, also, it's got to feel authentic. So I think that's definitely true. And I'm guessing the best way to do that is to experiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you done some experimentation with your own style? How did you find your style?
Just through trial and error, mostly. But whenever you have in any kind of business relationship, right? You make a phone call to a professional contact. You ask them for something. You develop styles of communication within your team, outside of your team, and you just see what works. You figure out, as you become as you go through your training as a professional, what works for you and what doesn't. I rely a lot on interpersonal communication and trying to focus on collaboration, and default to professionalism as a way of giving myself that extra, like, I deserve to be here and I deserve to, to interact with you in this space at this level.
I love that. Yeah, I love that professionalism. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience and advocating for others, and what you've learned in the process. And I hope to hear from you again in the future.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
As a leader, aspiring leader, or transitioning into leadership, do you struggle to express your views, to speak up, and to say no when needed, without sounding aggressive, without sounding rude or obnoxious? You are not alone. Most leaders never get the opportunity to be trained on how to be more assertive and speak up with confidence in a powerful yet likable way. Confident Communication Academy is a 6-week online course that teaches you the mindsets, the frameworks, and the strategies on how to be more assertive in a thoughtful and respectful way. It teaches you how to say no, how to have boundaries, how to effectively ask for what you want and need, express yourself with confidence in meetings and in conflict, give and receive powerful feedback, self-promote without bragging, disagree positively, and much more. It will help you lead better, have more impact, and fast-track your career.